Why, hello, warriors. It is me, Susie Pettit, your certified life and wellness coach, and I am thrilled to come on the episode today. I have an interview. Can you guess who my interview is with? I'm just being cheeky. I actually have someone on. Isabeau Maxwell is one of the leading spiritual coaches in intuitive development. So I was tapping into your intuition to see if you could guess who we had on the show. Isabeau has been helping people connect to their authentic, natural, intuitive abilities for over 15 years. She's the founder of the award-winning intuitive development course, The Sage Method, and the author of the best-selling book, Cracking Open: Adventures of a Reluctant Medium. Today, she works with amazing students around the globe to help them open their natural intuitive abilities and to live their fullest life. I wanted to have her on the show today to provide information and guidance for those of you who might be interested in learning more about how to tap into your intuition, and she definitely delivers in that instance. I also know that my listeners are really like lifetime learners and sort of open-minded people, growth mindset. And so I also wanted to just bring someone on who maybe is talking about some things that you hadn't considered, and to see if you can keep an open mind and listen in and maybe share at the end with me, email or Instagram, what you learned and sort of your takeaways. So I am grateful for you listening in, and I am grateful for bringing Isabeau to the show. Thank you, listeners. All right, and hello, Isabeau, and welcome to the Love Your Life show.
Thank you for having me. I love that you're doing the Love Your Life show. Like, I love that.
Yay, that's what I do. I teach people how to love their life, and I also have a Love Your Life school. So that's like where we get to just continuing adult education here in Earth School. So yay, I'm glad.
That's what it's all about. Community,
it is.
bringing people together so you don't feel so alone with what you're going through. It's glorious what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And it's glorious what you're doing. And this is part of why I love having you on the show, is that I have a lot of learners, people who are sort of the lifetime learners and want to learn more. And maybe, you know, they've heard about intuition and spiritual guides and energy. And I thought you would be a perfect guest. My hope is that after hearing this episode, listeners know a little more about sort of energy alignment, tips to build their intuitive abilities, all of that. And I think having you is a great fit for all of us, you know, open-minded people. So
yay.
Could you give us a little start, sort of an overview of what intuition is, or your definition of intuition? And
I think the way that I like to start is to just like bust open those doors and just say, it's not necessarily this special, elusive thing that we think that only some people have access to. We can look back on all the stories of history, and there was like the medicine woman, or the person that was, you know, that was their job to oversee intuition for the, you know, the group or the family. But the reality is that we are all wired with it. And for me, I look back at my path now, because I'm 50 today. And I didn't open
your 50th birthday?
Well, no, it was a couple months ago.
But okay, I was like, wow, happy birthday.
In time. It's been a long time since I've let go of that number 29. Yep. So for me, I opened up intuitively at 32. So I can now today understand why I opened up, why I'm out there teaching people, why I'm out there connecting people intuitively, because everyone can do it. And it's one of those things where I now see clearly that if I can do it, you can do it. And like legit, like before I opened up, age 32, I was a skeptic. I was not religious. I was not spiritual. I wasn't actively against anything. I just didn't have any time for it. I was raising 2 small kids and running around with all the chaos and the husband and the life and the take care of everybody. And, you know, I was knee deep in all of that. And I mean, to put it into perspective, my degree from college, or as you know, some of my friends on the other side of the globe say, from university,
Right.
my degree was my degree was in math. I mean, I have a math degree. I have a minor in chemistry. It had to be 1+1 = 2, or it didn't
Right.
exist. And at 32 years old, my grandmother passed away. We were a couple thousand miles apart. And within, I would say, an hour, middle of the day, right in front of me, she showed up in my living room and scared me. I mean, it scared me. I was just, no, thank you. And then
Right.
all of a sudden I went, well, wait a minute, what if it was,
Mhm.
right? Because I didn't want to lose her.
Yeah.
And now here I am today with you, literally the poster child of, if I can do this, you can do this too.
Yeah. It's like you needed a sign to like smack you out of the math science brain and be like, maybe there's something else. Yeah. That
Yeah.
sort of, and I guess that's where I'm looking for listeners to be here. Like I talk about like a window of opportunity, like just opening it a little to sort of think like, well, what if, and that being in that growth mindset instead of more that fixed mindset. And I really appreciate how you're talking about it. It's not like something that is like gifted to you and not me, or
Yep.
so that's very helpful. So if a listener is interested in learning more or leaning more into sort of their intuition, or they're like tapping into this what you're doing, are there certain things that you would suggest in getting started?
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah, I have 2 techniques that I love to share with people, with anyone and everyone that will try them out. And I tell people, this doesn't have to be woo-woo. It doesn't have to be guru. I am in blue jeans, yoga pants, or t-shirts. Like, that's my life. It doesn't have to be fancy. You just have to open up to the possibility that we all have it. It's just gotten this unusual pop culture spin that some people are intuitive and some aren't. That's like saying some people have skin and some don't. It's just, we all
fear
do.
of it, right? Like I grew up in Massachusetts where like the Salem witch trial, it's like, it's this fear of,
Yep.
and even I did some research before having you as a guest, like your experience in like, is this for real, or do I need to check into a mental hospital, and sort of
Yep.
that fact checking? Like we definitely, I think that black or white, do I have it or do I not? But then also like, what are we making it mean? If we ask to see a butterfly and we see a butterfly, like, do we need to go to Salem and turn ourselves in?
Exactly. So there's a stigma out there of crazy, or schizophrenic, and I understand that there are mental disorders that people really do suffer from chemical imbalances in the brain. Absolutely. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the guidance and the signs from your spiritual guides, your loved ones, the people that are watching over you. There's been a bit of a disconnect in many cultures across the globe over the last 50 to 80 years. There's been a big disconnect to your direct connection to source. That's untouchable, that's not reachable. When your loved one passes, they're gone. And what I work to do is help people understand you still have access to that, but you were trained to cover it up. So really, that's when we look at intuition, a lot of people today will look at it as a special thing that someone has. Whereas what I'm trying to help people understand, much like how I walked through it, you already have it, and it's kicking it 100%, but it's covered up. So think about kids, for example. Little kids are super intuitive. How many stories have we heard of a little one looking at the corner of a room and laughing at someone, and you're like, okay, I don't know who that is, right? That's exactly how all of us are wired. But as we hit those fabulous, fun teen years, and then we're meeting our partners and, finding ourselves and all that, we are so focused on the human life that we kind of build clutter over intuition that, by the way, technically we don't need. We have smartphones, we have Google, we have this, we have that. We technically don't really need to use our intuition, but when we open up to it, we realize our loved ones are around us. So when we do ask for the butterfly, we do get the butterfly, or, you know, different signs. Do I go left or do I go right? And then you get that sign. And yeah, there is some fear. There is some fear, because what is this? We're talking about you know, what's in between, right? We're talking about that which you can't see. What if I can see it one day? And I try to tell students they will not give you what you can't handle. And I know even for me, when that little 4'10" smarty pants of a grandmother stood in my living room, she turned and winked at me and had just this grin on her face. And I know she was just loving the moment. She was like, oh, let me do it. I'm going to startle her right into this. Let me do it.
I'll be
Even,
the one.
you know, I'll let me be the one. And,
Yeah.
and she was, and I could handle it. And I've been teaching for over 15 years, 16 years, something like this, tens of thousands of people across the globe. And I have yet to meet somebody that had something happen that they couldn't handle.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just.
Well, I love one of the things you said there that just sort of made my spirit like feel calm was guidance, and then also support. And that sort of looking at it from that lens, not the scary lens of, oh my gosh, what does this mean? But like the guidance and support. And then also bringing the kid in there, because the kid brain really comes out feeling loved and supported. And it is only in our conditioning that we sort of get that fear in there that we're not, but how nice it is to feel loved and supported until we learn otherwise. So I think, you know, a lot of what spirituality has given me, and a lot of what I've looked at, what, you know, you brought about is some more of this comfort, like, oh, maybe I'm not this, you know, alone little person marching around with all my own dramas, but maybe there is some support or guidance out there.
Yeah. And
so how would you suggest, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's no substitute for immediate community in your life. That's really important. You know, that's what you're building. There's no substitute for that, but it does help knowing that you're watched over. And if everyone thinks about it, they have had a moment at some point in their life where they've been like, wow, I think I was watched over in that situation. But yeah.
Well, and I guess like someone might just be like, well, how do you know you're watched over? And I do a lot of like, you know, sort of from the more literal side, like the thoughts we think create the way we feel. So if I think someone's watching over me and I feel better, I'm like, that's good enough. Like if I think that like me going out and talking to my grandma Marion every morning, I feel supported. Like who's to tell me that it's not her right now? Like it's
thank you for saying that. Yeah. Exactly. Who even needs to know? Right. I mean, I opened up and I did. I went out into the world. I was a professional intuitive for 12 years, something like this. And now I'm teaching this course and all this. I get it, but you don't have to do that. And the people that learn from me, I would say probably 98% of my students never use intuition professionally. They just use it in their day-to-day life. And you start to realize that we're in this beautiful, awesome program that we have more access to things than we thought that we did. And we start thinking about what we want, start showing up. We start thinking about the people we want to be connected to. Those things start to iron themselves out. It's really, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun. And when you ask for what you need and you start to get it, and you start to get answers and responses, I'll just give you a quick fun story of what I mean about living in the flow. That's how I call it. I'm not out there to be professional, but I'm just living in the flow, intuitive flow. We were on a camping trip. Actually, we've got a really large RV. We love to tow it and, you know, do like 2 weeks at a time. We were going down the freeway. And the only reason I'm talking about the size of this RV is because it's a very heavy one. And we were going very fast down the freeway. And all of a sudden a signal on the truck said, hey, the brakes on your RV aren't working. And that was very scary. And my partner slowed down. We got into a rest area. The signal went off. And I was standing in that rest area and living in the flow, trusting my intuition. I said to my guides and my loved ones, hey, do I need to know anything about these breaks? Do I need to be concerned? And I got that fantastic goosebump rush that rushed through me. And I went, okay, so I got to do something about this. And I said, again, what's the next step? What do you want me to know? Which, by the way, for all of your listeners, that is a number one question with intuition. It gives you the most answers. What do you want me to know? And I could hear a guide say, I'll send someone to help you. And I thought, okay, great. So we left the rest area. And I knew they meant like in my travels, I would run into someone. Went to the RV resort, parked. That evening, a couple was walking past our rig, our RV, and stopped and said, you know what? We have the exact same RV as you. How cool is that? And we were like, that's really great. He goes, have you had any troubles with brakes? And I said, you know, as a matter of fact, like literally 3 hours earlier, right?
Wow.
I was like, as a matter of fact, we just did. And he goes, oh, well, good. Listen, I know exactly where you got to go, who you got to talk to, and what kind of brake upgrade you need. So go to this person in this town and talk to him about this, this, and this. And we were like, thank you so much. That's what I mean about living in the flow. When you open the door to accepting all the possibilities that are out there for you, and that your loved ones and guides are literally working for you. You start to have these moments, and then it's unmistakable. I'm not alone.
So some of what I want to get into, because some of my experiences with this have been, I might get something like that. Like I might have someone come up to me and then my brain is like, yeah, but like, that's a, coincidence, or that's, just whatever. And I've heard you say, like, ask for that sign or ask for something, and then you need to believe it. And that, because I had this where I like early, I was like, okay, show me a butterfly. And then I saw a butterfly and I was like, yeah, but then, like butterflies are always, it's
yeah, but that could just be a coincidence.
So can you speak a little to that, or how, I don't know how to get over that doubt, or what you
I have the perfect technique to get over this doubt. And the reason why I have the perfect technique is you could not have found a bigger doubter than Miss Math 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
I'm sorry, but the proof has to be so big, or I'm not going to be on board with any of this. But doubt, what I dove into, and this is why I love coming from a scientific background and stepping into spirituality, I find that I can access a more balanced state of spirituality than I see in others, or other places or experiences. No judgment anywhere in there. But I dove into this doubt piece. I'm like, why? I opened up so much, and I trained and opened up and ended up becoming a professional. I would have a reading, something would come through in the reading that I would even think to myself, I can't make that up. Like, you can't make that up. Like, that's so wild that came through. And I mean, like, a grandmother coming through with a poodle that ate green beans for treats,
Right. Yeah.
First off, I had to have the courage to say it, thinking this lady's going to think I'm crazy. But secondly, the lady was like, yes, that was her dog, and she fed her green beans. And you leave that session going, you can't make it up. So it's got to be real. 2 days later, I have another session, and I'm doubting if any of this is even real. And it was actually my husband at the time who got really irritated and said, that's it. You come in and I hear about this experience with poodles and green beans. And then 2 days later, what's going on? And I went, something's happening. Something's happening. So this is a chemical, biological habit. Doubt. I really encourage everyone to let go of their own. Don't come down on yourself for doubt, because it is just like any other habit we hear. Takes 21 days, takes 30 days to create a new habit. That's because the synapses in the brain fire in a certain pattern. And if you have years of not believing or not trusting your intuition, then that's the pattern. The synapses are literally firing in your brain. That's the electrical current that's happening, which is doubt. So even if you have one moment, within a short period of time, those synapses are going to go back to what they're used to, which is doubting. So this is what you do. You get a journal, any journal, but make sure it's only for this purpose. Little book, pad of paper, doesn't matter. Anytime you have an intuitive moment, I thought about my sister and she called. I knew the light was going to turn red. Anything that you go, wow, can't make that up. That was pretty wild. Write it in that journal. When you find yourself having doubt, pull that journal out, reread the things that have happened to you. That is going to systematically help rewire the synapses into the reality of what's actually happening to you today. That's going to help break the habit of doubt. But we don't doubt because we stink, we stink at it, we're bad at this. No, we doubt because it's literally a chemical process.
I really appreciate you. I mean, we've a lot on this show. We talk a lot about like neural pathways and neuroplasticity and stuff. And I had never thought of doubt in that way. And even, bringing back to what you were saying with the kid, like you have one experience with the kid is like, I was just, feeling support from my angels. And one parent is like, no, you weren't. Like that wire, like that 0 to 7 age, that's wiring deep in those neural pathways. So to just now sort of remove the shame that we're doubting, or just that, like, of course we're doubting, totally normal. Like society at large encourages us to doubt. I appreciate
completely normal. Completely normal. So grab a pad of paper, designate it for your experiences. And I had to do that. I had to do that to stop the habit of that. And once I started doing that, I mean, granted, I was a professional working and having a lot of reading, so I had a lot of situations come up, but it was pretty quick. It was pretty quick. Every time I found myself doubting and I went back and went, oh yeah, this stuff really did happen. Okay. I'm here for it.
Well, and I know something happens like when we're writing something down too, and so I was just thinking, I often will sort of talk back to the doubt in my head, but I'm going to practice writing that down because, if I'm just like, yes, I asked to see double numbers and then I saw double numbers, or sort of gets into something I wanted to talk about. Cause you said it's like a muscle for us to build, and that it's something that, you sort of use it or lose it, or we like, it's something that we can build, this intuitive ability. Are there ways that you would suggest getting started on building it, or sort of tapping in a little more here?
When it comes to the concept of like building it, I like to kind of guide people toward the concept of 2 really big, heavy doors that have been shut. And it's a matter of using kind of your muscle to push the doors open. What's behind those doors is already there, but we've shut it down from our programming, from, all of that stuff throughout our youth as well. So the 2 things that I love to tell people is the first one, let's go with the easy one first. And this is kind of the fun one. When it comes to your energetic body, that's really important. We're taught to take care of our physical body, but we're not really taught to take care of our energy. We're getting there. We're learning these techniques, right? But I tell people to do something called GCP. So G is for ground, C is for clear, P is for protect. Very simple. Once you do this, do it once or twice a day. It becomes super easy. It takes you 5 seconds eventually to do it. And it's just grounding into Mother Earth, imagining your feet on the ground. The second step, clearing, and try to do them in order, because this is going to help with the alignment. So you ground, anchor into Mother Earth, clear, imagine like water or wind washing through you and washing away all the energy and emotions and stuff you don't need to carry. And then the P in this is protect. It's like a bubble. Imagine a bubble around you that's like a filter. And the filter says, only let in what's for my highest good. Now, what's going to happen when you do this is, because you're not carrying energies that you don't need, things are not translated through those energies. Things are either not as heavy as they're feeling, or they're not as frantic as they're feeling. Some of the side effects of doing this include easier manifesting, easier ability to fall asleep at night. That like brain where you're just like going over worrying about everything, that subsides. Your reactiveness kind of turns to like, it calms a little bit. And then you're able to be more of you, more centered and more focused. So I tell people to do this. When you start doing GCP like once a day, just saying, I have an energy body, I'm clearing it out, cleaning it up, taking care of it, protecting it. When you start doing that, that's where you start to link in to your intuition, to source. Things get easier. And then the other one, this one's fun too, I guess. When it comes to starting and playing around with your intuition, that's why I tell people, go ahead, jump in, play around, right? Please do GCP, because then you're going to, ground clear and protect yourself, which is wonderful. Sit somewhere between you and a wall, like 3 or 4 feet in front of a blank wall, and look at the wall. What I want you to do is a practice of defocusing that, and I want you to bring your gaze to the point in between you and the wall, so it's not landing on anything. When we are trying to have an intuitive moment or tap in or do anything like this, we are so used to anchoring into the solid world that we're not accessing what we actually want to access, which is not in the solid. And so this is why and I love this tool because it's such a teeny tiny aha moment, but all of a sudden it'll open a bunch of doors for you. When you see something out of the corner of your eye and then you turn and you can't see it, there's a reason. Out of the corner of your eye is your peripheral. That's defocused. When you turn to look, you're now focused. You're looking at the door, the chair, the table, you're searching. And when we relax that gaze and allow ourselves to defocus away from this material world, that's where we connect with what we're trying to connect with in our intuition. Because our intuition, loved ones, guides, source, higher self, universe, none of that is in the physical.
So what are you thinking when you're staring at that in-between space? Because I'm a thinker, like my brain is like
I know the brain's like, okay, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. I tell people, as tempting as it may be to ask the 47, psychic questions that you have, because I had them too in the beginning. As tempting as that is, allow yourself 60 seconds or 5 minutes, if you can do it, of sit 3 or 4 feet in front of that wall, let your gaze fall into the space in between, and just think to yourself, say out loud, or you can think to yourself, what is it you want me to know? And stay.
Oh, okay, so I am asking, yeah.
And stay open. That's your way of saying, I'm here, I'm present. If you want to make yourself known or anything like that, this is the space. This is where people start to feel, see, hear, taste, smell. Stay open to however it's going to come through. And it could be a guide or a loved one, or it could just be a message from source. But you'll start to feel an experience in that space.
That's super helpful. Because I was just thinking, like, knowing me, I'd be like, stare at the spot, Susie, breathe in, breathe out. I'd be trying to keep my focus on my breath or like that spot, and trying not to have my brain wander to, the 400,000, but just sitting and trying to look at that space and ask me, like, what do you want me to know? I'm going to try that. I've been doing GCP every morning since I heard you on a podcast probably about a month ago, and I am loving it. So one question I have about that is, I am a little more detailed in my GCP. I like think of like, I do it in the morning and I like ground my feet down into like the core of Mother Earth. And I imagine like her energy, like pushing out of me. And then I think sort of like clearing specific things, like maybe a worry about a son or, and then protective has been more, as you said, like I loved your words of like, just keeping out what's not for my highest good, like a protective bubble. But in terms of clearing, what I'm hearing you say is we can just, like, it doesn't have to be it's not like mine is that prolonged. I think it probably takes me 90 seconds instead of 5 seconds, but clearing, I can just be like, sort of tap into the guides of like clear whatever I don't need, or just sort of a general, like, I almost imagine like a brushing.
Yeah, what I love about this practice is that when you use the things that resonate with you, that's where the practice works best.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of the same through all of my teachings is
Mm.
I'll give you the tools and the format, and then I will ask you to make it yours, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
So if you love,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to point out to listeners, I'm so glad you said that. This is me and that, like, I'm still in that like literal brain. I'm like, okay, Isabeau, did I like do it right? Did I like, is this the right way? And it's just that like returning to self and self-guidance and all. It's like, if it's the right way for you, Susie, it's the right friggin' way. Like, it's okay.
but it's natural, isn't it? To be like, did I do it right? Did I do
is.
it right? Did I do it right? Did I do it
It's
exactly? Did
new
it
for
work? Did
me.
it
And
work?
I'm like, oh, right.
Totally
Should I be
natural.
holding a crystal to my right? And then
Do I have to turn this way? Do I have to turn that way? What do I have to do? Yeah, one thing I learned very early on in this journey of mine is when you take something and really make it yours, like, you know, it gets stronger because it gets personalized to you, really.
Yeah.
So what's the element that you love? Do you know what I mean? Do you love water? Do you love fire? You know,
Yeah.
I have so let me give you an example. I know somebody right off the top of my head that imagines tree roots for grounding, ground into the earth, clearing. She has like wind and water rush through her and wash it away. And then protecting, she uses a bubble. Now, I have another student that I've actually worked with for a very long time who, for grounding, she imagines standing in a flower patch and having a cat weave in and out of her legs. That's her grounding technique. For clearing, she has a dragon that shows up and breathes fire through her entire system to burn up anything that she doesn't need.
Yeah.
And then for protection, she has a suit of armor. So she reads a lot of novels. She loves nonfiction. And you know what? Go for it.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. So
Yes.
when it comes to if you're doing it right, do you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Does it feel good when you do it? And are you using the things that you love in it? You know,
Yeah.
my best friend is this powerhouse female attorney, right? And when she grounds, she gets these two big steel pillars that shoot out of the bottom of her feet like anchors, like a skyscraper. I'm like, that's kind of overkill, hun. You
But
know,
that's
you're
so
kind of going, you're going a little far with that, but I'm only joking. That's what works for her.
Right.
So,
I love that. I really appreciate you sort of pointing that out.
exactly. And here's one more example that I found has been very helpful with students. Myself. I have programming from childhood of a mom that continually tried to burst my bubble. Burst, just, not gonna work, not gonna work. So I have programming of don't burst my bubble because I'm a dreamer. I'm like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And so for me, when I do GCP, I ground, I clear, but when I protect with a bubble, I make that bubble 4 inches thick with like gold that runs through it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
try popping it now. Nobody can pop this one.
No one can
So
yeah.
you have to be willing to get to know yourself, be willing to like remind yourself of the core pieces that you love so much and start bringing them into your practices.
Which is what all of this is. And that's what I'm hoping listeners sort of get this, like, take what you want. Like if anything, triggered you and then it's like, okay, that's not for you right now. Like listen to that. But if something was like, oh, that might be interesting, I might try that. Or then follow that spark and see what happens there. One more thing that I've heard you speak about that I don't really understand is like a yes, no pendulum. And look at
I love
my hand, because don't we like move it? So like what is that practice?
Well, first off, yes, no intuition is something that everyone should do always.
Okay, tell me about that. Yeah.
A lot of people will look at yes and no intuition, meaning when I say yes and no intuition, you ask a question, and if the answer is yes, you'll feel something. If the answer is no, you'll feel something different, or see or hear. It depends on how your intuition is uniquely aligned with you. But let's just go with feeling, for example. Let's say there's a person who, when they ask an intuitive question, they've discovered through practice that they feel a warm rush when it's a yes, and they feel like cold when it's a no. All right. So they've established their yes and no intuition. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's basic. That's like beginner level intuition. So once I get past that, and start seeing more images or feeling different things, then I don't necessarily need yes and no anymore. I still use yes and no to this day.
Yeah.
It is so foundational. It's like a checkpoint. It's like, you go around that racetrack, you got to stop at the pit stop for a minute and like check in. Okay, how is my intuition working? Because as we grow, as we age, we change. Think about, especially your listeners, think about how you feel today versus how you felt when you were 22, right? What's your opinions on your life, opinions on the world, things like this. We change. And so doing yes and no is really, it's just such a solid practice. So I encourage people to do it.
Can I just say one thing? Because I think at the very basic, yes and no can be kind of difficult for me and listeners like me, where we really were sort of prescribing to like a conditioned way of being a woman, or like what the good girl is, or the good mom, or the good wife, or that we've shut off from our feelings. And so that in itself can be like I hear from people, they're like, I don't know what I feel. I don't know what I like. I don't know, and that, so yes, I would agree with you that that's not an elementary practice at all, that would be something to look like, how do I feel after I say yes to baking all the cookies? Am I pissy? Well, then that, like, pay attention. That's your system closing up.
Yes. Or even before that, should I do this? Should I take a left? Should I go this way? Because we know many times beforehand, we've got that feeling of, am I going in the right direction on this one? Am I doing the right thing for myself or for my family on this one? It's really, really important. Here's what I do. I got to tell you, if any of your listeners are skeptical or like type A, or, really any of that kind of thing, you're relating to me right now. This is what I do for myself. And sometimes I'll still do this, especially if it's something that really means a lot to me. If you're asking a yes and no question about something that you think means so much to you, or you're going to get in your own way, or you might not get an accurate answer because, is my sister who's not well going to be okay? Should I marry this person? Should I get divorced? These big things, this is what I tell people to do. Get like index cards or pieces of paper that are all similar, and put a big old yes on one, big old no on the other. Fold them up so they're identical and you can't tell them apart. Put them in a bowl, mix them up, juggle them, turn around 3 times, whatever you want to do. But then hold one and say, what does this feel like? And then hold another one and say, okay, what is my intuition telling me with this? Here's the beauty of doing it that way. You're getting yourself out of your own way. And now your guides, your loved one, and your own higher self is like, good. I'm glad you're not thinking anymore. Now I can deliver this intuitive message to you. And you're going to hold one of those cards and feel something. You're going to hold the other card and you're going to feel something very different. Very different. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. If it's a big decision for me, I'll still do it that way.
Because I've spent a lot of time in my listeners' brains. Could you also, like, I've sent some, they're like, oh, I won't feel it. But like, where I think they might feel it is like, say you're like, oh, okay, what am I going to feel? And then you open it and it's a different answer. Like, can't you also pay attention to that? Like, if it says yes and you like felt like, you're going to feel something. I just think we need to start practicing that feeling muscle a little more, that it's like, okay, so you think this is the right paper, and then you open and it's no, that's going to tell you right then, like, oh, actually my big wash of, discomfort tells me like, that's still a feeling. We can begin here. We're all like, let's just start. It's like, oh, okay. Not making anyone wrong for it.
Exactly. And well, when it comes to intuition, and your source, your higher self, your spiritual path here, when it comes to being spiritual, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about society standards. It's about being on path or off path. Sometimes things that we do or experience or choose in life, we can look back on and go, oops, or maybe shouldn't have. Like, I'm kind of making light of that. There are going to be ones in our life that we look back on and go, what the heck was I thinking? But they're supposed to happen. So when it comes to trusting yourself and your instincts, I guess this is what I would want to say about intuition. If you haven't used your intuition, for the majority of your life and you decide you're going to step in and do this, please do, first off. But when you decide to step in and start using this, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It really is. It's going to be wobbly at first. You're going to have little inklings. You're not quite sure. But I absolutely promise that if you keep going and you keep using yes and no, you keep defocusing, you keep checking in with your energetic body, where am I at? Even if sometimes you don't feel anything, even if sometimes you don't get any answers, if you keep going, you will eventually start to be able to trust the feelings that are coming through, because they will start to grow and you will start to get in sync with them so much more strongly than you had ever been before. Meaning all through your life, you probably had your intuition very subtly like pushing back on you to stop, right? Don't go that way. But we were so shut off from it that we just kept going forward.
Ignore that. No,
I'm just gonna ignore that. I'm up for a big old Mack truck
Change your
experience.
major.
Here we go. Exactly. And when you start to consciously say to your intuition, I'm listening now, I guarantee you it's going to start to say, good, 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 good. Here's what it feels like when it's a no. Because think about this. What if you were a spirit guide on the other side? Or what if you were a loved one on the other side and you were taking care of your humans that were still here? And your human said, okay, I'm listening now. What are you going to do? You're going to be like, yes. And you're going to help the signs come through. When you feel this, it's a no. For me at this point, I've been using my intuition for 18 years now. At this point, I don't think I could physically move forward if it was something I wasn't supposed to do, because the feeling now is so strong. It's so open compared to what it was 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to practice. So thank you. I think, yeah, that's a really, this has been really helpful to talk to you. If listeners want to learn more about you and how to build their muscle, where would you direct them? And I'll put all the links in the show notes.
So I do a really good job at keeping everything at the website. It's thesagemethod.com, THESAGE method.com. And I tell people, go there. I'm such a bargain shopper. Look for the free stuff, because I've got the free course that I have in there. I've been giving to people for years now, that covers GCP, the defocusing.
Oh, was that the top 5 tools or something?
Yeah, the top 5 intuitive tools.
I loved that. I couldn't believe you gave that away for free. Yeah, I just did that. I loved it. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big course. It's not like a teeny tiny little, hey, thanks for the free course. No, it's like, seriously, if you start using those 5 tools, which you can do on your own,
right?
It's a wonderful, wonderful place to start. That's where I would send someone. Okay.
I 100% will. I will have that in the show notes. And I'm so grateful that we were able to have this conversation. I know people did get something out of it, and I know I did. So I really appreciate you coming on here with your time. And before we leave, I have to, if people are not watching this on video, I love the sign behind you. And I need to point it out to listeners. It says, everything always works out for me. They will know that I work with worry and anxiety, and we talk about how our brain goes to what if, and it goes to the worry monster. And I talk about the worry fairy. And I have a saying, I have people say, like, what if it all goes better than you ever imagined? And so I have that sign over here on my wall around the corner. And I love this. Everything always works out for me. So it's back to sort of what we were saying, like, what's the harm in thinking this, that we're supported, that we're loved, that people are guiding us and we feel connected. I'm grateful for you for bringing this message to us.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm grateful for you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.